Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Elizabeth Squared. I'm Elizabeth.
And I'm Lizzie. And today we're diving into a number talk that we're kind of just planning for. It's not like we've done it.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about like some of the teaching practices we expect to see and just like the tensions that teachers often have to navigate in real time.
So the number talk that I was kind of thinking about, I decided to go with bigger numbers this time.
Mhm.
So I thought about 135 plus 97. And
Okay.
even just like picturing it in your head, you can imagine like the multiple strategies that every student might use. I mean, some might break apart that 97 into 90 and 7 because that's easier for them, or some might think that 90 or some might think 97 as 100 minus 3.
Hmm.
And I mean others might even count on from 135 just depending on what they do.
Yeah, and I think one of like the first teaching practices that will probably show up is eliciting and using student thinking.
Yeah.
And the teacher's likely going to ask students to explain their approaches and maybe even record different strategies on the board.
Yeah.
And that way, all students can see the reasoning behind the answers and not just the answers themselves.
Exactly. I mean, I imagine a student could say, like, oh, I added 135 plus 100 first, and then subtracted that 3 to adjust for the 97. And
Hmm.
then as a teacher, you could say, why subtracting 3 works here. And I mean, it's honestly really subtle, but it's critical. It's like a critical way of encouraging reasoning over anything else.
Yeah, and that ties directly into prompt four that our professor gave us for this podcast. And the tension between supporting productive like struggle and keeping a clear goal. If a student gets stuck trying to add seven after breaking apart the 90, the teacher has to make a decision. Do they
Yeah.
step in and give a little hint or like a little nudge, or do they let the student struggle a little just like kind of to figure it out themselves?
Figure it out for themselves. Yeah. I mean, it's a good way to just delicate, delicate balance. It's just a good way to balance. I mean, too much guidance, and you're taking away the chance for students to develop reasoning. And then obviously too little guidance, and they might become frustrated or just getting like what's the word? Agitated, something like that. And
Hmm.
like I anticipate I can imagine the teacher might use like guided questions because those are always very essential to use.
Yeah.
Like, oh, where did you start? Or can anyone think of another way to add to 97? So kind of getting their thinking out there.
Yeah, exactly. And like another teaching practice that I would kind of expect to see is attending to precision.
Yeah,
For instance, if a student arrives at 3:32 and
yeah,
the teacher might ask them to explain the steps, you got 3:32, can you walk us through each part? And that ensures students aren't just saying an answer just because they want to
yeah,
have an answer, but they're
yeah.
truly like understanding and they're like able to communicate their thinking and talk about how they got to 332.
Oh, definitely. And I'm sure that modeling strategies will also come into play. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, the teacher could demonstrate breaking apart numbers in multiple ways. I mean, you could show that 135 plus 90 plus 7 versus 135 plus 100 minus 3, and then compare them. And then this helps the students see that there's more than one correct or valid approach. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I expect that, like, as a teacher, like, you connect these strategies to, like, the mathematical representations, like
Hmm.
drawing a number line or using place value charts,
Yeah.
even just like a quick, like, diagram of hundreds and tens and ones. And you can make abstract numbers more, like, concrete for students who need this, like, visual support to be able to see it,
Support.
which
Yeah.
I'm definitely a visual thinker, so that would
Oh,
definitely be, like,
definitely.
something I would
I
use.
mean, going back to like the tension piece, one thing like I would be really curious to see is
Hmm.
how the teacher decides when to stop or when to like step in, like stop and
Yeah.
step in for those kids who are struggling. I mean, supporting productive struggle is a real like key part when it comes to teaching, but it requires very careful judgment. They need to obviously decide when to let students like wrestle with the numbers and when to
Hmm.
intervene and avoid off track thinking. And I feel like it really just depends like student, like based on the student itself. Like I feel like a
Oh
teacher
yeah,
kind of just knows their kids and when to be able to step in and when they should just keep going.
exactly. Like some kids will need that like stepping in quicker or
Yes.
they'll just shut down and some thrive off of like a little bit of struggle. So it's definitely
Yeah.
like kind of knowing who you're working with.
Yeah.
Um, and that like tension actually highlights how like all of like the mathematical teaching practices work together as like a
Yeah.
system rather than just like a checklist. Like you
Yeah.
need one to be able to kind of build on from the other. And so like for example, like elicit student thinking, modeling strategies, and like guiding questions all
Hmm.
interact, and then one practice supports another. And as a teacher, you really have to balance them carefully and to make sure you're
Yeah.
kind of getting all of it in.
Exactly. No, that's good. And thinking ahead, um, I anticipate like I would see moments where the students interact with each other as
Mhm.
well. I mean, the teacher might ask who solved it a different way, and I mean, she could even be like, "Oh, turn and talk. Okay, why don't we see who solved it a different way?" Like that encourages like discussion, comparison, and critical thinking. I mean, peer-to-peer interaction is also very subtle but very
Mhm.
powerful. Um, and it's easy to sometimes overlook.
Oh yeah, for sure. And another point I expect to see is how the teachers like support productive struggle without discouraging
Yeah.
the students. Like
Hmm.
even if a student's method is slow or slightly inaccurate or
Yeah.
like something's a little off, like the teacher can highlight the reasoning behind it and that
Yeah.
allows the student to feel successful and keep them like engaged at the same time.
Engaged. Yeah. And I mean, it's like I think the student who may use a different strategy might spark an aha moment
Hmm.
for others. I mean, that's when the teacher has to guide the conversation just enough so students notice the efficient methods, but not so much that they feel forced to abandon their own reasoning. I feel like that's like a really big thing. And that's
Oh
the
yeah.
classic tension between the independence and the guidance.
Oh, for sure. I also anticipate like seeing like small group or individual scaffolding. The
Hmm.
teacher might pull like one student aside to ask guiding questions or prove visual or like give them visual aids
Yeah.
while letting like the rest of the class like continue with their thinking and just kind of like doing a little one-on-one to check in, but while the
Yeah.
class is still kind of working. And I feel like that really allows like for differentiation while like still keeping the flow of the number talk, but just
Hmm.
knowing your students and knowing where you have to kind of step in and kind of help a little bit more.
Yes. And so for everyone that's listening right now, some big takeaways in something that we're probably going to see going forward, when we do number talks or
Mhm.
even when we watch them. I mean, we kind of just really expect to see eliciting students, like student thinking, modeling multiple strategies. I mean, even just in class, we've already seen so many of these things. Guiding questions, attending to precision, using representations,
Mhm.
supporting productive struggle, and just peer discussion. Like all of these practices, they exist in tension at times, but especially supporting struggle versus keeping a clear goal.
True. And I think this number talk will really like show how teachers constantly make judgment calls. And it's not just about how they're teaching and like the teaching procedure. It's about creating a classroom environment where the students feel safe to try different strategies
Yeah.
and to make mistakes and not be
Hmm.
scared to make those mistakes and knowing that when they make those mistakes, they're going to learn from each other and kind of just like creating like the safe space where they can all lean on each
Yeah.
other and they all know that like everything's gonna be okay. Like they can do what
Yes.
they want and they can learn, and that's the whole point.
Yes, and that's what's so interesting about number talks. I mean, it's it's basically like this tiny portion of teaching, like practice and action.
Hmm.
Every move the teacher makes affects reasoning and like engagement and understanding, which is very cool.
Yeah, it is. And like getting to actually like observe like number talks in class, like it is super
Hmm.
exciting. And like I'm so excited for when we get to do it too, because we'll be able to
Yes.
compare like what we're expecting and like what we're anticipating to
Yes.
what actually happens. Like,
Yes.
were we able to like balance kind of the struggle well? Like that's something I
Yes.
definitely, especially when like you don't know the kids quite yet, like being able to kind of
Exactly.
pick up on those little things. Um,
Hmm.
like which practices were the most visible and which ones were like a little more subtle, but they were still there. Or like, I don't know, like those reflections
Yeah.
are where like learning really deepens for us and for the kids.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I actually am very excited to do it with a group of kids that I
Hmm.
have at my school. I mean, it's going to be interesting, and I obviously decided that I needed a little bit of help and guidance from my teacher based off the kids, but I'm very excited to see where their brains go when I put as something as simple as 5 plus 5 or 5 times 2 on the board, like something, or like 10 times
Hmm.
if I'm going by tens. Like, I'm very excited to see where that goes.
All right, so that's it for today's episode of Elizabeth Squared. We were virtual again this week
Yes.
because of all the sicknesses going around, but
It's terrible.
it's like the worst time of the
So,
year for that, and you can't avoid it. So,
yes.
but we are
Thank
still
you.
committed to giving this podcast.
Yup. All right.
All right, we will see you guys next week.
Next week. Bye.
Bye.
Oh my God.